Hi, my name is Sid.
I'm Train. And I'm Anna, and we're going to be doing a market view presentation on the two pairs of currency, AUD USD and AUD Japanese yen.
And we'll be doing a 3 to 6 month forecast on these two currencies according to the exchange rate.
So first of all, let's look at the currency for both the Australian dollar and the US dollar. As of September 16th, 2016, one Australian dollar is worth US 75.18 cents, according to the Australian Business Review. It seems that there has been a change of values in exchange rates, as it used to be 74.56 cents US, and now the US dollar has increased in value to 75.18 cents. Therefore, it can be seen that the USD currency appreciated against the AUD. To add to this, it would mean there is a more higher purchasing power with America's currency, as $1.33 of American dollars is worth more in AUD. Judging by the low currency of AUD, other currencies will be looking to do international trade with Australia, preferably to gain some imports, and the currency would be lower. And when the currency is lower, outsiders can get more in return from their high purchasing power. So furthermore, we came up with the following hypothesis based on our analyzation of the economy of what could happen in the future to the exchange rates of AUD and USD in the next 3 to 6 months. The assumptions of the change in exchange rates will be discussed based on the following theories. So first of all, the first theory would be based on the economic indicator of interest rates. So the interest rate for Australia would remain constant and would not increase according to the RBA. However, according to this analysis, inflation may occur for America, and if it occurs, real interest rates take into account this inflation, and it would create short-term increase in the real interest rate. This would mean there will be a capital inflow of America, where there would be international transactions of borrowing or investing. Therefore, the exchange rate would result to an appreciation of USD against the AUD. Also, the demand for USD would increase since people would be willing to invest more from the high returns they would get. And we can see the assumption explained in the graph shown, which shows that the inflow is encouraged and there would be increases in the demand of the USD. However, outflow would be discouraged, which decreases the supply of USD. And in conclusion, the net effect of the increase in the interest rates will lead to the appreciation of USD against AUD.
The second economic indicator that may create an assumption that the AUD would depreciate against the USD will be the inflation rate. When looking at the inflation rate for the past 5 years and then trying to use this information to create a forecast for the next 3 to 6 months, it is important to understand that from 2012 to mid-2014, there is a drastic increase in the inflation rate before it stabilizes, making these years irrelevant. However, after mid-2014, the inflation rate seems to become somewhat constant, making this portion of the data more relevant. When we look to predict the inflation rate in the next 3 to 6 months, we have to also predict what will happen to interest rates. We believe that interest rates will continue its trend and further decrease, therefore causing the inflation rate to rise, since low interest rates tend to attract savings. This also follows the graph as currently seen it is slightly rising. According to the RBA's media releases data, interest rates in Australia may actually decrease, and if this assumption is true, then it would cause a depreciation in AUD against the USD. Since America would want to import from Australia because its currency is cheaper, it would increase the demand for imports having more purchasing power, whereas on the Australian economy side, the demand for exports would increase for its goods and services. Furthermore, if this assumption is followed, it would cause a decrease in the demand for the Australian dollar, as it would not be worth as much compared to the American dollar. So overall, there will be a depreciation of the Australian dollar against the US dollar. In addition to this, and in relation to inflation rates, the low interest rates would attract savings, which would cause inflation to rise. This is because consumers have more savings, and from the low interest rates charged, people are able to borrow more money, which in turn would allow the economy to grow and inflation to rise. And this graph shows that if Australia has a higher inflation rate than its trading partners, it will experience less demand for exports and therefore less demand for AUD, more demand for imports and therefore more supply of the AUD, and the equilibrium rate would decrease, thus causing the depreciation of AUD against USD.
So another factor that can cause a change to the exchange rate could be the growth rate of the economy. Since the interest rate is slowly increasing in the US economy, there is economic growth. According to the Focus Economic Statistics, as of the date of 30th of August 2016, the data shows an increase in GDP per capita for America. So not only is the interest increasing, but there is also an increase in national income. Since the US economy is growing, these changes could affect the exchange rate and possibly increase the USD. The belief of so is because more savings resulting from higher national income would lead to increased imports since there would be more government funds for expenditure. Therefore, the US dollar would appreciate against the AUD. In the next 3 to 6 months, it is expected that the Australian dollar will depreciate against the Japanese yen. As of September, 1 Australian dollar equals to 77.35 Japanese yen. Even though the graph shows that there is a decreasing trend, there are reasons to believe that the Australian dollar will appreciate against the Japanese yen. In 2016, the Bank of Japan opted to follow Europe's path and bring their interest rates down into the negatives in order to resolve deflation and reduce borrowing costs, thus increasing the demand for loans. However, the ideology behind negative interest rates has not had that great of an impact on Japan's economy. Although dropping the interest rate to minus 0.1 has helped the Japanese yen to appreciate against the Australian dollar, it did not manage to increase economic growth or inflate prices. For the past decade, the Japanese economy has been suffering from stagnation and chronic deflation. According to the Statistics Bureau, Japan's current inflation rate is at minus 0.4% and is expected to decrease in the near future. According to the Reserve Bank of Australia, it has been declining over the past 6 months. Japan's chronic deflation rate would mean that the Australian exports would increase due to the decreased prices in Japan. This would cause the Australian dollar to appreciate against the Japanese yen.
So here we can see that the past data of inflation for major advanced economies, and as you can see in the bottom right corner, Japan's inflation has been declining in 2016, which leads to the assumption that it will further decline. On the 15th of January 2015, Australia and Japan signed the Japan-Australia Economic Partnership Agreement, JAEPA. In a speech given by the Minister of Trade and Investment, Han Andrew Hogg, he explains that JAEPA guarantees Australian services suppliers access to the major Japanese market in key areas of commercial interest. This agreement will also mean that Japan will eliminate tariffs, giving Australian exporters an advantage. The result of JAEPA means that there is an increase in demand in exports, allowing the Australian dollar to appreciate against the Japanese yen. According to the World Bank, Japan's current gross domestic product per capita is 38,733. For the past year, Japan's GDP has been decreasing, while Australia has been seeing economic growth and is currently at 67,458. In the statement on monetary policy for August 2016, the RBA identified low inflation as a factor that led to GDP growth. This would benefit consumers as it means that they can buy more goods and services.
So when comparing the two, we can see that Japan's GDP growth rate has a more noticeable decline when comparing with Australia. Because Australia's GDP growth rate is higher, it will increase the supply of the Australian dollar, allowing the supply curve to shift to the right. When taking into consideration the factor of Japan's economic growth, an analysis of Japan's interest rate can be raised. Due to the negative nature of their interest rate, it can be concluded that there hasn't been a significant economic growth. The growth rate has stagnated so far that Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe announced plans to inject more than 28 trillion yen in economic stimulus in an effort to prop up the nation's economy. Since the Japanese economy is not growing at a constant rate, it seems to point towards the fact that the Japanese yen will either remain constant or depreciate against the Australian dollar.
So, in conclusion, based on our analysis and assumptions, we forecast that the AUD would depreciate against the USD, and on the other hand, the AUD would appreciate against the JPY.
Thanks for watching.